The first person that I asked if he would come here and speak is Stephen Dublanica, who has written a book called Waiter Rants. And he was a waiter. Do you still consider yourself a waiter?
Oh, you.
Once a waiter, always a waiter?
Always a waiter.
Yes, and he was willing to come, and I was absolutely thrilled. He is here with his wife, Ann. They are not from this area. They live in New Jersey. Mostly you were a waiter in New Jersey and New York?
In the New York area.
New York area.
That's all my lawyers will let me say.
And we just had dinner at the Bee and Thistle. And Steve and Ann and my friend Carol, where are you, Carol? There you are, right in front. He has incredible stories that are really a lot of fun. In the middle is Tracy Armaos. You may know her by her maiden name, which is Devlin, as in Huey Devlin. So Tracy was working at the restaurant, Huey's. How old were you?
Well, from the time I would go there on the weekend, I would peel garlic, but as I remember, basically at 7.
Yes, and she is a happy. Hello, how are you? She is a very happy waitress. Right now, she is taking a few years off because she can, and she has 2 little kids, and that's quite wonderful. And she's going to tell you about being a waitress in our area because this is where Tracy lived her whole life. I've been here only about 25 years, so I'm not really a Yankee. And then we have Carlo Ianelli, and he is a Maitre'd at David Burke at Foxwoods. He has been in the food business for as long as you can remember.
Since I was 17.
That
was at least 100
yes,
years ago.
100 years ago, which was 100 years ago for me too. And now he is a Maitre'd. He loves his job. He has no chance of, you're not going to retire.
No, I've retired
As a
7
food
years
writer,
ago.
I'm never retiring. I hope that Tracy is smarter than that. Steve, I'm not sure, but they're going to have a baby soon, and that will keep him busy, I think, a little. Anyway, we're going to talk about the problem with customers. Because to the best of my knowledge, we hear a lot about waitstaff. We hear a lot about people who own restaurants, but we don't hear about the customers. I don't know if you have friends that you don't like to go to dinner with. I do have some. Because the restaurant is never what they want. If I'm not in the mood to go out to a restaurant, I don't. And if the food is terrible, I probably won't go back, and we were actually talking about that. That's the worst thing that can happen to a customer, is to be unhappy. But now we have some people who are going to talk about the problem with customers, and there are problems with customers. Tell us 2 of the worst customers you can remember, or 2 of the worst.
I once had a man strike me in the restaurant.
A little louder.
I once had a man hit me in the restaurant. Yeah, because he was upset over how he was being treated. He didn't get the best table in the house. He walked in without a reservation. He said, I want the best table in the house. I didn't have it for him. And he was freaking out. Of course, he was loaded drunk. And he smacked me. But I think the worst ones are the ones where it's excruciating. You feel so bad for the other person, and those are situations where I had very intoxicated patrons, and they would bring paid companionship to the restaurant, and sometimes the paid companions were not the it was different, and you had to sit there, and and I always was very nice to them, but this guy brought them in all the time, and he treated them very poorly, and you had to sit there, and you had to listen to this guy, and I've never felt more sorry for hookers in my life than when I worked in a restaurant. Because
At least
I dealt
they
with
were
this
getting
guy.
dinner.
And you were sitting there going, I feel so bad for these girls. I want to toss this guy out on his keister. And then luckily, eventually I did. So, but he was those are the excruciating moments, especially when you see people being mean to one another. That's tough.
Is that sometimes with
I
wives
had
and
a table
husbands?
once where the brother and the sister were sitting there discussing how they were going to cut their other sibling out of the will. You know? So it's, I mean, that's kind of crazy stuff to hear.
Wow. And Carlo, you have very unusual customers.
Well, actually, we're in a casino, so we have most of the people who come in are gamblers.
Little closer?
Most of the people who come in are gamblers. And as you know, casinos are not built on people who win money. They're built on people who lose money. So generally speaking, they come in with sense of entitlement or a chip on their shoulder or what have you. But what I love, though, on a busy Saturday night is when you have this couple coming in and says, I would like a quiet table. And I tell them their restaurant closed 6 months ago because on Saturday night they had quiet tables. You don't have quiet tables. Or they'll come in without a reservation and expect the best possible. Or they come in without a reservation, expect to be seated ahead of people that have reservations. So we try to be very nice. Generally speaking, we have a great deal of repeat customers. And when they come into the restaurant, it's not, even though it's a high-end restaurant and we have wonderful, wonderful food and service, they're playing. So it's a necessity to eat. It's not necessarily a gastronomical experience that they want to enjoy. So they're in and out. But they do come in, maybe not quite 20%, but we do have a percentage of people come in and they're big players and they expect to be treated different, which we do. We do. When I haven't been there for so long, I know all the players are. And the other interesting thing is they'll come in one day with one person, female company, next day it's a different female company. They're married, we know that. And we try to be as discreet as possible because usually the line that I use is, gee, I haven't seen you in so long. It's a nice, because they'll introduce you and say, this is my wife. I haven't seen you in so long, and they wink back because they certainly don't want, but that's crazy to come into the same restaurant over and over again and expect.
Yeah, what are they thinking?
But again, we have a captured audience because people that come in. The interesting thing with Foxwoods and the casino, we don't get a great deal of locals. I think there may still be some resentment back when 21 years ago when the edifice was first put up. But we get people from Boston and from New York and what have you. And a lot of the people that we get are people that have dined in all the best restaurants in the world. That's why I tell the staff, don't judge a book by its cover, because you could have someone come in sweats and looking horrible and miserable, and you would think he's sweeping streets somewhere, and he probably just won or lost a great deal of money. He's a big player. So we have to be very careful with that. Not that you wouldn't want to be any differently in any restaurant, but that's what we deal with on a regular basis. But I asked, let me know if I'm going too long.
Sure.
I asked my experienced servers that have been with me since day one, we've been there for over 5 years. I was with the casino 10 years prior to that. I've been in all their restaurants. And I say, what does a guest represent to you? And to every person, it's livelihood. They understand that if they treat that customer a certain way, they will get rewarded, and they expect that customer to come back. And we do have a lot of people come in and say, so-and-so working, and so-and-so working. So it's professionalism for a lot of them. Not to say that they don't run across, red herrings from time to time, and it happens. Usually bachelor parties, where they're there to have a great time, and they don't care if anybody else around them has a great time. So we've asked bachelor parties, we've asked a group of people to leave, simply leave. Dinner's on the table, leave. Because what happens, I have to comp all the dinners to the people around them because they're being so disruptive. So we're very careful with that. But generally speaking, we don't.
I want to also get to Tracy,
Yeah,
but
please.
I had lunch with Carlo and Tracy, and we went to Muddy Waters, which is owned by
My
Tracy's
sister
sister
and
and brother-in-law, and it's a great place if you haven't been there. And both of you talked about the fact that when you get a difficult customer, you work harder than you've ever worked before to make them happier. And at dinner tonight, Steve said the same thing. It becomes a project to turn the customers into happy people.
Well, for me, I've actually even taken over a couple tables that somebody had an issue with them, so obviously they were very unhappy. And so when I take over the table, I feel that, of course, I want them to have the best dining experience that they can have and try and turn around the situation. In fact, one I recall was Fran and Paul Scully Powers, who was a former astronaut. And I met
really?
them because I took their table over for somebody, and I've been friends with them this many years later. So I always try and look at the positive, because for me, some of my best friends have been in the business. Some of the customers that I've met over the years are some of my best friends still today. And I know personally when I dine, for me, it's a memorable experience. I associate food and music and with my favorite things. So I want everybody to have that fabulous experience when they come in.
Well, Tracy, I was afraid that you wouldn't even be able to tell us about difficult customers
Well,
because
I can.
she wants everybody to be happy.
I
But
think
you've
in this
had some
business-
difficult ones.
Yeah, I think in the majority, to be in this business, you really do have to be a bit of a people pleaser. And I am a people pleaser, without a doubt. My family, I kind of learned that from my father. He was social with everybody and gregarious, and, he helped out in the community, and my sister and I try and do the same. And I can tell you about a customer that I told her about the other day. And, it's one thing if somebody's unhappy with something and they really haven't touched their meal, and you're happy to take care of that. But if they eat every single morsel on the plate and you've checked with them to ensure that they're happy, there should be no reason for complaint at the end of the dinner, as far as I'm concerned. This one particular gentleman ate every morsel of his 2-pound lobster, and then when he was done with the lobster, proceeded to tell me how he doesn't believe it weighed 2 pounds and he didn't want to pay for it. So they actually gave him, the owner chose to give him another lobster, which that was her call, and she did, and he still complained. And he made such a scene that the people around me were so gracious, they felt bad for me. I got sympathy tips, is what I call that.
Oh, isn't that nice?
So, and a couple of the customers actually told the gentleman how rude he was being, and they said, she's been so accommodating, and the owner actually went out and yelled at him. But that was one of my worst.
Now, you have stories that are unbelievable from Waiter Rants, and do you have this, Betty Ann? Yes. You do have it here, so you can actually rent this. Tell us about some of your customers.
Well, I think when you're talking about restaurants, and I was just thinking as you're talking about people getting ready to leave, there's something we call grazers in the restaurant business. Does anyone know what this is?
I didn't know it.
This is when, and it's usually women, but
It's okay.
I hate to generalize, but come in and take up the nice table, and they reuse their tea bag over and over and over, and the bill is $20 for 2 people, and they've stayed at your table for 3 hours, and you could have turned that twice and made $40, $50 more dollars in tips. And so I was thinking of all the ways we would try and get people out of the table.
And how did you do it with those 2 women?
Get out. That was but sometimes you have to be more diplomatic than that. And if you're lucky enough to work in a restaurant with a bar, you can say, the chef has something special for you. Go over to the bar and have it.
Get out.
I was talking to another guy, he had a great idea. He would go up and say, who would want a kitchen's tour? And all the foodies would go, yeah, me. And they would go off into the kitchen. And when they went to the kitchen, their coats were taken, the table was reset. So you have to have some tricks to get the grazers out. I was thinking that.
Now, when, sometimes in New York City, if you make a reservation, they will tell you you've got it from, well, you don't get 7 o'clock reservations, but if you get it at 6, they'll tell you that they can have it until 7:30. That doesn't happen around here. At least I haven't seen
Well, you
it
cut them
happen.
loose after half an hour or something, or they
No,
don't show?
you can actually stay. I don't, because I feel sorry for the people who are waiting, and I feel very sorry for the wait staff because they're just not making enough
Well, if you're
money.
leaving me extra money because you're staying a long time, then I like you.
You
But the
like
owner's
it.
not going to like it.
The owner's not
The
going
owner's
to
not gonna
like
like
it.
Sometimes we have large parties that come in, and we try to limit their time. If I have a party, if 2 people come into the restaurant, they're going to stay an hour and 15 minutes. If it's 4, they're going to stay longer. If it's 20, they're going to stay 2.5, 3 hours. So if I need a table again in 2.5 hours, we usually tell them, I will be able to accommodate you at this hour, but I need a table again at this hour.
Oh,
And
so you do tell them?
we do tell them ahead of time, if they're large parties. With couples or people, 4 people, a 4-top that's sitting down, we don't push them out. We don't. It's a casino. We don't know who they know, what they know. Then we're an accommodation. That's a different thing about David Burke. We're an accommodation to gambling. So we don't want to be people to go back to their host and say we were treated shabbily, we were pushed out. So we're in that box, so to speak. But we have ways of getting people out, in terms of, we'll talk to them, we'll invite them to the bar, we'll invite them to see the wine tower, we'll invite them to see the dry aging room. But we don't clean that table necessarily while they're gone. We can't do that, which is quite nice. But
In New York, they do.
But as we talk to them, we tell them, by the way, I say, I hope you enjoyed everything, and we'd like to see you with us as soon as possible. I do have a full restaurant, so, I have other people coming in, so hopefully they'll enjoy it as much as you do. And you sort of have to just drop it in your window. Hopefully they pick it up and they go. But we have customers that'll come in, and we have a certain nomenclature for that group of customers. But after a while, you learn that when they come in.
What do you call them?
Huh?
Come on, that's why we're all here. What do you call them?
Yeah, it's not a kind word, so I will not repeat it. But they're known for their customs, what they do. So when they're at the table, we tell the server, this group will be very difficult. So make sure you take the order properly. You repeat the order. You have a manager come to the table and confirm that this is what they've ordered. The minute the food is dropped on every course, you go back. How was your dinner? How was your appetizer? How was your salad? And halfway through the dinner. And then we step away. Because invariably, at the end of the meal, I'll say, we want to see a manager. We don't like our food. Oh, yeah, that'll happen. And we say, well, when we're here, when you ordered, and when the order was delivered, and I checked with you personally twice. I'm sorry. You have to pay for it, period. You waited, no complaints. But what do we do if we don't pay for it? So we call the police, which we really...
Oh, have you really?
Well, just to
You have?
intimidate them, because they,
Well, your own police.
Yes,
Yes, your
but
own
we have
police.
state police there also.
Oh,
They
yeah,
belong to-
and they will.
They will approach them. We have had people walk out. We have people that say, oh, this is too much. I never know who's going to pay for this. Well, look at the menu, please. And then they'll walk, one will go to the bathroom, the other one goes, and before you know it, they're going. Well, we have cameras. It's a casino. We have cameras. We just call them
Now-
in, and they spot them somewhere, and they
Yeah.
come back and said, oh, I didn't pay? I said, no, you didn't. And we try not to embarrass them.
Well, of course, you've got cameras everywhere. Now, I just heard that there are customers, and they call them, they eat their food and then they run. They don't
Dash
pay.
and dine.
Dash and dine?
I've only had one, and I think after you've been in the business for a
Dine
long
and dash.
time,
Yeah.
you can kind of a little bit tell. I mean, you can tell who wants to be schmoozed and who wants to be left alone. You can pick up some simple little things. I've caught somebody who was getting ready to dash and dine, and I brought it to the attention of the manager or the owner, and I said, please, because there are places that will charge you for it as the server. And,
Really?
so that's a big portion of, or maybe all your tips, depending on how much it was. So, you try and keep a good eye on that. And, that's one of the things that you learn.
This is brand new. You're aware of this, obviously, Steve.
Oh, sure.
Are there a lot of people who do that?
No one ever got away from me.
Really?
And I,
No.
me neither.
Really?
Yeah. I've
I-
chased
I
people
just-
down the street.
You really have?
Yeah.
Not just for a tip?
Well, sometimes it was really, honestly, you get customers who get really, really drunk, and they really don't know what they're doing, and they thought they paid, or they thought their friend paid, and that's an honest mistake. And then you have people who are definitely trying to scam you, and you have to, and it's always surprising who it was. You know, the well-dressed person, you thought everything was gonna, going smoothly, and they're trying to skip out on the bill. That happens.
This
but
is
what's really
something that's-
criminal is
yeah.
when the owner makes you pay
Oh,
the
my, I
bill.
just can't even imagine.
It's illegal. It's illegal
Yeah,
for them to make you do that.
we sort of let them know that they should be paying, they might be paying, but we haven't charged anyone for that, we'll just take the hit on it. But just to impress upon them how important it is, because what happens, you were talking about it before, we have, on our system, the way we serve, we have a front and a back server. The front server is the captain, the back server assists. Then we have food runners, they'll bring the food from the kitchen to the table. And then we have bussers that will water and bread and we set the table at the end. So there are 4 people involved with every table. So when it comes to tipping, everything is divided, well, not equally, but the two, the front and back servers, sometimes they have an equal share, and then the balance, or whatever the percentage is, goes to the busser and the runner and to the person that's making coffee and what have you. But in most cases, they make sufficient money, so that's not an issue. But what you said before, we don't allow that to happen. If the front server sees a table and greets him and takes the order, I don't expect him to be gone for the rest of the night. His presence has to be there several times. Because this is what, you have to make the guest feel like you're not just eating here. We appreciate the fact that you're here. We enjoy you having you with us. You may be a pain in the neck. We'll put up with you, and a lot of them do. But generally speaking, we don't have that many people that are really abusive. And then the ones that do really stick out, and you remember them. And I've asked people that have come back after being told to leave the restaurant, sitting at the bar, and I go up and say, excuse me, the last time you were here were a problem. I don't want you in my restaurant. And I'm able to do that.
Well, it's a casino. You got guys with kneecaps and drill bits in that place. You can do that.
But we always try to accommodate as much as possible. And as I said, the service feel about the guest, it's their livelihood. So they want to be nice, they want to be very, very hospitable, they want to be very helpful in choosing whether it's a wine or dinner. They have to know their food. They have to be able to describe and tell them what's in it, and develop a relationship so that when these people, not only do they increase their tip, but also the next time they will ask for them. And I love it when people do that, because I know that my servers have done a great job, because people are coming back asking for them.
I'm going to ask you a question because it bothers me about customers. And it comes with a very short story. 2 weeks ago, I took 2 way older than I am women to lunch, and we were in Putnam, Connecticut. You aware of Putnam?
My sister used to own the Vine there. and
Oh,
pies.
that was good.
Yeah,
That
and
was
pies.
good. Generally speaking, there are no good restaurants in Putnam. And I don't care what you say, there aren't. So one of the women that was with me has decided in the past 4 or 5 years that she is lactose intolerant and gluten intolerant. So we go to this restaurant where these women had been before, I had not. And it was not a good restaurant. There was nothing about it that was wonderful. One of the women ordered a salad with, I think, steak on top of it. I ordered, I don't even remember, maybe crab. And the third one, who is lactose and gluten intolerant, said to the waitress, "What do you have that I can eat?" I really thought that was way, way beyond what any customer should say. Tell us a little bit about how many, many people seem to have gluten problems and lactose problems. Are you seeing it more?
A lot more now than even 10 years ago, I'd have to say. celiac, gluten, just people dieting, people that really sometimes aren't really allergic to something, but they say they are. You know, I think sometimes it might be that they don't like a particular item. But I think restaurants have become a lot more accommodating with those issues as well today.
Have you found the same thing, Steve? Or do you feel the way I do? I'm sorry, I
I think
have no
some of it
tolerance.
is, I think people do suffer from real problems. I think some people are lying, quite honestly. I think the thing I've always been amazed by is this situation where I would bring the fettuccine Alfredo to the table, and the man would go, no, or the woman would go, I ordered the salad. They were looking, their brain was saying, order the salad, and their gut was saying, get the fettuccine, and their gut won. But their mind refuses to believe that, and I have it on the pad. I've heard
Well,
it
I
said.
think that would have been me.
And they would come and they would insist that I made a mistake, and they would insist that they wouldn't pay for it. And I wonder about that. So I think some people, if you're going to a restaurant, one cook said, it is a combination of sugars, fats, and salts. All right? You're not eating super healthy food sometimes when you go to a restaurant. Eat that at home. You're going to a restaurant, enjoy yourself. Quite simple.
Exactly the way I feel.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, we see a great deal more, especially the gluten and lactose, not so about gluten. Everybody has a gluten allergy lately, it seems to me. And we have a special situation, if anybody's allergic to anything, what we do, not only we write it on the dupe and we put it in the micros, we alert one of the managers and we alert the kitchen staff. And then when the food is brought out to the table, it's not brought out by the server, it's brought out by one of the managers to let them know that this,
Oh, really?
whatever the allergy is. The only thing, sometimes they'll come in and they'll say, we are allergic to peanuts.
Oh,
And I say,
that's-
how allergic? He said, deadly allergic. I said, well, I suggest you don't come in. I cannot guarantee that a cook did not have a Snickers bar an hour ago, and he's breathing that on your food, and that could become a problem. So I say, don't come in. And when you say that, well, it's not so bad. I said, I'm sorry. What you told me initially, I just cannot allow it, you know? So lesson learned. Sometimes they do it to get sympathy from their mate or whoever they're with, and sometimes it's real. But we have to treat it as real, obviously.
Oh, sure.
But I've seen a great deal more. So they'll come in and they'll say, it's funny when they go to the Italian restaurant, they have gluten allergy. I say, what are you doing? At least we have a steakhouse now. We make sure that nothing there's no bread or rolls or what have you that touch anything like that. But don't go, Or they come into the restaurant and they are vegetarians.
Oh,
And
that's
we
my
do
favorite.
accommodate them.
Yeah.
But I said, you're sitting on a leather seat. You have
Right.
leather shoes and a leather purse,
Right.
and you don't want to eat the animal. I understand, that's fine. But know that you're in a steakhouse.
But the flip side of that, if you went into a vegetarian restaurant and said, I want a steak, they throw you out.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
So, yeah.
Yes, I agree. And so you are actually seeing quite of this now, and you sort of wonder.
But we have to, obviously, if they tell us, then it's so. But I've never seen as much as now.
Yeah, it does.
It seems
does
the past 5 years.
And as I said, we went to dinner at the Bee and Thistle, and we're all trying to lose weight. And I ordered mac and cheese, and I said, well, that's not actually on the South Beach. And Ann said, no, it's way North Beach, way north. And man, it was just really delicious, and I will pay for that. I will, yes. Now, have you ever been a wait person yourself?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
But you do talk to customers who are
Constantly.
happy or unhappy?
Constantly. I'm the front of the house. I do take care of all the seating,
Yes.
what have you, and I touch all the tables after as much as I possibly can. Because I know, most of the customers that come in, I know them. They'll know me. They'll say, we were here Tuesday night. Where were you? Well, it's my night off. Oh, okay. Well, is it always your night off? Not necessarily, but it happens to be this time. Well, we missed you, which is nice. So I do see all the people that come in, and people want to. One thing about the restaurant business, when you go into a restaurant, especially for the second, third time, you want to be recognized. You're paying big money to be there. In most cases, McDonald's, who cares? But, and so you want to be recognized, and you want people to see you in that fashion, and acknowledge you at the table and make sure they come over more than one time to make sure everything is fine. And they say, well, you always get the right answer. Not necessarily. I'm looking for the person that's not satisfied. Because sometimes you'll be at table, and I try to make eye contact with every single customer, and you'll see that 3 customers are very happy, and you have one that, I say, okay, that's the problem. And I say, they're all saying everything is fine, but obviously you found something you didn't like, well, and then eventually you get it out. And it's not a major problem we can deal with, but you want them to feel like, because they're afraid to talk in front of the other friends.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll get the phone call a week later, say, we were in your restaurant a week ago and I didn't like my food. I said, okay, what did you do? Did you tell anyone? No. Okay, so we're mind readers now. So tell us, because we want to solve the problem, and the servers want to solve the problem while you're there. Not only makes the customer happy, it also ensures the fact that they are tipped correctly and that the customer comes back. It's a repeat business.
And as Steve mentioned on the way back to here tonight, you also mentioned that you have to take care of customers, but you also sort of have to take care of the owners too.
I worked for a guy, my very first restaurant business was for, I just call him a fascist in New Jersey. And he was homophobic, anti-Semitic, racist. And he robbed your money. He threatened you. He bribed. He shook down the kitchen staff. He was truly a monster, truly a monster. And I remember he had a heart attack one day, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's too bad," you know. Yeah, that's how despised this guy was, and he hated his customers. He hated them, and it's one of the odd things about the restaurant business is that it attracts. Now, where you guys work. You know, you work for really professionals, but for some people, this is a way to make money, right? And they weren't good at other things, so let's try this. And they really he didn't like his customers. And what did he do? He would buy carrot cake at Costco, and then he would sell it for some inflated price. So that's the kind of guy I unfortunately had to work with for a while. Teaches you how not to be in the restaurant business.
And you and your brother were very happy when you read the obituary.
Oh, and
it
then
it can be that bad.
I was saying I've never been happy hearing even people I didn't like. I heard, oh, they've passed away, and oh, that's too bad. Or he was somebody's father. That's too bad. We were like zip-de-dee-doo-dah when we heard this guy. Yeah. So I mean, am I a bad person? I don't know, but he will truly not be missed. But he's a legend. And in my book, I went to great pains, because the lawyers told me to avoid naming the restaurant and describing him and all this. Well, he's an idiot, and when my book came out, he's in the paper saying, yeah, he worked for me, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't deny anything in the book. He didn't say, he's wrong, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm not a racist. His wife said, well, the restaurant business is tough. What is that? So some owners are truly, truly difficult people to work for.
And
Tracy had a problem less than a year ago?
And
we don't have to name the chef or...
Yeah. No. Actually, ironically, he walked out of his own restaurant.
Yes.
Somebody else owns it now. And I've worked for a couple that were difficult. But, I don't mind difficult as long as it's because they want the place to be kept clean and, you do your side work, and they take pride in their place. And I greatly understand that, because I can be a little difficult. I've managed. I'm not always the easiest, but
you
I
are
have high
not.
expectations.
You're Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. I know you.
But this particular person, he was not nice. I made arrangements the very first day that I worked for another job. So I stayed there for a little while. I was waiting for the other place to open. And he didn't get along with his partner, but apparently he's walked out of other restaurants, and he's prejudiced. And so it's unfortunate that, in this day and age, you can't be prejudiced and be in the restaurant business. You can't say, oh, I don't like black people, I'm never going to have somebody black working for me, or white, or Italian, or whatever it may be. It's, I like all people. I judge them based as an individual. There's good and bad in every area of the world, but it's nothing to do with the prejudice.
Now, when you are a wait person. Am I using
Server.
the right, is it,
When
I'm
I
trying
was
to be
young,
PC.
it used to be waiter and waitress, now it's a server. It used to
Server,
be a
okay.
hostess, and now they're greeters. Everything's changed.
Now, when you serve a meal that actually may be not good, and that customer says, I want you to bring it back to the chef, is
Sure.
that a problem?
No.
It isn't?
No, I don't know.
The chef won't throw it at you?
No, now there it goes to depend on your relationship. I've worked in restaurants where the chef was deluded and was like, there's nothing wrong with this dish. And I'm like, it's green, come on, fix it. But, but it's your money, right? You deserve a certain level of excellence at a restaurant. I send stuff back. It's all in how you send it back. And the best way to do it is to send it back calmly, I believe, and immediately. Like, don't wait till you're halfway through it. Say, I believe there's something wrong. The restaurant owners want you to be happy. The waiter wants you to be happy. You know, so yeah, send it back. I mean, we're not going to spit in it. You know, come on.
Oh, we've
come on.
always-
Who does
we've
that?
always sort of worried
So,
about
you
that.
know, yeah, but that is such a rarity. I was a restaurant. I never saw it. Right? I thought about it. Trust me, I thought about it, but I never did it. And that really doesn't happen, you know, as much as people.
Doesn't happen as much?
It happens. I'm never gonna say it never happens.
Have you ever seen a
I know of
server?
one incident, and it wasn't a place that I was working at the time, but I do know somebody put a couple drops of Visine in.
Oh,
that's what?
dangerous.
A couple drops of Visine.
Would that be bad?
I guess it's supposed to make you kind of incontinent. I don't know.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my.
I don't know. I've never contemplated spitting in anybody's food or doing anything, you know, off. I might be a little disappointed and hope they might not come back, but I've never, you know, actually, I've even seen servers go chase a customer into the parking lot because they didn't leave a tip or they didn't feel that they left enough. And when I was managing, I said, you will not do any such thing. This is the business you chose. You don't choose what people leave you. Either, you know, you're good for the business or you're not good for the business. And I think it's totally reprehensible if a server goes after somebody for a tip.
Oh, I chased him. But you know what you learn? Oh, no, one time I went to I said, what's your problem? Like, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, and I was like, 15%, 10%, 8%, what's going on? But then I learned, if you want to be there for the good tips, you have to be there for the bad tips. And after I learned that lesson, I kept my mouth shut. But in the beginning, it's very difficult when you're waiting tables and you're doing the best job as you can. And I remember one guy turned to me and I said, we had an automatic gratuity on the table, it was 18%. And his dinner went wonderfully. And he turned to me, and this is a direct quote, "You're not worth 18%. All right, at that point, I don't care about your money. I want to slash your tires, okay? So, right. And you imagine how that feels?
No, I can't.
Right. So when people think the waiters sometimes go overboard, sometimes they just snap. There's just so much. If a waiter came up to me, I would say, leave it alone. The benefit of my experience, leave it alone, let him go, he's a jerk. Get the next customer and make money, you know. But I had to learn that lesson the hard way.
Now, do servers talk to each other about bad customers, and when that customer comes in, you all run away?
Sometimes
You do talk to each other.
Sometimes you'll have a regular come in, and we know that this may not be the best person. Nobody really wants to, oh, it's your turn this time. I had him last week. Can you take him? You know.
New guy.
Yeah.
That's what we used to do, new guy.
Sometimes I'll have a server that'll come to me and says, you know, I busted my chops for that table. And I just want to let you know up front, in case they come and complain, I've done everything, the food was great, what have you. They left me 5%.
Ooh.
And I don't understand why. Now, they don't brood over that. They know that it's past and there'll be other tables and what have you. But sometimes they feel like, what did I do?
Yeah.
And sometimes either the customer had a problem elsewhere, they come in with a chip on their shoulder.
Or it might have been my father. When I told Steve on the way back, my father thought, you know, he was actually frugal, but, you know, he thought 10% was enough. So when we went out to dinner with my father and my mother, as he would go forward, I would leave another 20 under the table because, and it wasn't that anybody did anything wrong. There are people who just don't get it.
And it's true. And I think sometimes if people are a little bit older maybe and maybe on a fixed income, and, I have no problem with that. Although people should realize that we have to tip out 20 to 25% of the tips that we make to the bussers, to the bartender. Depends on which restaurant that you're working at.
It makes a big difference.
Also, we have what they call, you were talking about tips, there's a TEPA rate. Some servers have a TEPA rate from the government, it's $20 an hour.
Oh, ooh.
Because the government keys in, they know the restaurant, they know how much money they make. And so if they're there 4 hours, they're paying $80 in taxes.
Yeah.
TEPA rate. And that's what a lot of restaurants have it. And because the government is really keyed in on, because for the longest time, servers would not pay, everything was mostly cash years ago. And they never paid their income, so to speak. So they came up with that formula.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the level of the restaurant, they basically know what servers are making. So the smart ones do declare a TEPA rate of their level, so at the end of the year, they're not paying, because they can be, the government will say, okay, you've been chosen, and we're going to.
The government will go a long way toward making sure that people are paying what they should be
Most
paying.
restaurants here are informed you have to declare 100% of your charge tips, and you have to declare at least 12% of your other tips.
Yeah, that's pretty much, pretty much. But if it isn't happening,
Yeah.
it isn't happening. I would like other people who are in the business or aren't in the business or have curiosity to ask some questions of our guests. And there's one right there.
I've certainly seen people in restaurants send back bottles of wine that are undoubtedly fine wines, but they're just not to their taste. I mean, how do you deal with that?
It happens, in my restaurant, it happens very, very seldom. We try to explain the wine. We try to find out what their knowledge of wine is. We will open a bottle of wine and have them taste it. And they'll say, no, this is fine. And then after you pour the bottle and you bring the bill, they say, no, the wine was terrible. And we insist that they pay. Now, there have been a couple of occasions where somebody has really refused the wine, and rather than make a huge issue and create a problem in a restaurant, we let it slide. But generally speaking, we make them pay for the wine. It's just, unless it's corked, and you can tell that immediately. I mean, we sell so much wine, and the vintages change from year to year. We tell them that too. We're drinking 07. All I have is in 09 because I've sold all the 07s and 08s. It's a different vintage. So if you're expecting the same taste, you're not going to get it. And the servers are all clued on that, so they know what to talk about. Because once they burn once or twice, a couple of times by that situation, they try to be on top of it as much as they possibly can. Doesn't happen. Occasionally it happens, but not very seldom.
All of you? I would not know corked from not corked.
Well, you can taste it.
I wouldn't be, because I don't drink enough wine to know. Do you, as waitstaff, could you? Well, you can't taste anybody's wine.
Well, I've actually been lucky enough on one occasion that I did have a party, and they wanted me to try a little bit of the wine, and I asked my manager if it was okay. They left me a little bit, and it was one of the most fabulous wines I've ever had. But generally, I can't afford to go out and spend $300 or $400, $500 on a bottle of wine, you know.
don't.
So, on those rare occasions, it's very nice.
And Steve, have you known people, because a friend of mine who has a restaurant, people who will actually send a bottle to the kitchen? Or, in Connecticut now, we can take bottles home that are,
okay.
we can.
Sure.
But I know that the kitchen loves it when somebody brings a bottle
Yeah, they
for
do.
the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
I've never done that, but
Sure.
I think it's a really nice thing to do. Not the $300, $400.
No, I have a
No.
great, I had a dishwasher, I forget his name, I think it was Tigre, we called him, and someone had a Brunello Montalcino that was about $400,
Ooh.
and they drank about half of it, and it went in the back. He said, I'll give it to the back. And I said, okay. And I said, I'll give it to Tigre. And Tigre just took it. Drank it like it was high C. It was amazing. Yeah.
It's
and
wasted.
he was happy.
Other questions?
I still remember the bottle of wine, by the way. It was a Chateau Lafite, and it was from post-Victoria, and John Kadama has quite an extensive wine list himself, and he would save a case for 20 years, or he would order so much of it at the time, so he was able to give it at a little bit of a better rate than some of the restaurants.
Question. Let's assume you have 6 people having dinner, and one of the 6 is a rather slow eater. How do you feel about cleaning the table for the other 5
I hear this all
while
the time.
the slow eater
yeah.
is still cutting his steak and potato?
Well, proper etiquette says that you're supposed to wait until everybody's done eating. However, if guests do say, oh, please take this, then of course you don't want to make them feel, they're the guests, so it's really their choice.
Yeah, it's the same with us. We wait until everyone's finished with a particular course before we move that course. But there'll be occasions where they'll take the dish and they'll just push it away. That's an indication that they want that removed, and we will do that. Occasionally, you have somebody that will take a long time, and you'll find that the rest of the group will say, well, I'm done with mine, you can clear mine, almost trying to give him a hint, or her, whatever the case might be. And that's the only time we do it. We don't arbitrarily, because somebody's slow, just say, okay, and we have to remove all the dishes now.
They say the reason for that is because it makes that last person eating feel rushed.
Steve, what do you think?
I think the person eating slowly is angry at everyone else at the table and are off their meds. So I have no sympathy for them.
Also, what we get sometimes are people that'll order, there'll be a 3-course, but somebody only orders a 2-course. And they don't understand why they have to wait for the other person to finish before they get their food. But we explain that to them. But it gets to the point where somebody's ordering a salad and an entree, and somebody's just ordering an entree. We really get to the point where we say, you realize that he's having 2 courses. Would you like to wait for yours? Oh, no, I'm going to have mine right away. So we solve that problem that way.
As a customer, I will sometimes say, I'd like to keep the salad with me. Mm-hmm. And they're, wait staff or servers are very nice about that. Mm-hmm. And nobody else cares what I'm with, so.
There's also, with the social media, people don't have to complain when they're in the restaurant, but they'll write you up a stinker of a letter, and we get all those, and we try, our mantra is that no one should leave unhappy. No matter what the situation, get a manager involved to make sure that people at least want to come back, and we do something for them to take care of the situation. But we do, and everybody watches those. And in the past 6 months, we are going down to the point where maybe we get 1 or 2 nasty complaints per month, but we used to get several more than that. So we're adjusting to that. And people have to see it, because sometimes the server does not recognize that he's done something wrong, what have you. But when those letters come in and they describe Joe Blow, and this is what he looked like, and this is what he did, and what have you, it really hits home. And it does, it does teach them that they've messed up and not to do it the next time, or what the problems are. Because whatever you found wrong, probably somebody else did who did not talk about it. But we want to hear from those people, and that's how we make the corrections. So we do get those. I mean, it's amazing today how quickly somebody's on the way out the restaurant, they're talking about you already.
Yeah.
So we have to be on top of that as much as we can.
And they take pictures of the food.
I do that.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Well, not only was I a server, but I've worked in the kitchen, in the pantry, and I've bartended, and I love food as much as I love people, so that's
I'm just worried that they're videotaping the waiter now when you come to the table.
Lenny?
I had a question in the industry that you're in, and you stated before that your customer knowing them when they come back
Can
is
you
key.
all hear Lenny?
Is key.
Okay.
What is your program to keeping that information about a customer that comes in, that may be a walk-in, or how do you keep that file of the person going forward when you want to get the name, what they eat, what they do
Okay.
in a file?
With today's technology, open table, you can put all the comments. But on a Saturday night, when I have 700 to 800 customers, it's extremely difficult to just put a comment about 700. You just can't do that. We try to do with the people that come in more than once. If people have a specific wine that they ask for, there'll be a note. So when that customer comes in, they can know they were here, they had this, they want that particular wine. But it's very difficult when you're doing that massive amount of business on a Saturday, on a Friday, to keep track of anything. But it's like anything, any other technology. It's the information you put in is the information you get out. So
You have that many people?
on a Saturday, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But we do have comment cards that we ask people to fill. Those comment cards are religiously transmitted to the office and also input into a database. So we have a person that does that on a regular basis, inputs it. That's why we want the comment cards.
We put comment cards, but a lot of people don't fill them out.
A lot of people
They
don't
don't
fill
have
them
to.
out. And other than, if they have a good experience, you're happy. If they have a better experience, you're trying to find out what that experience is. And we'll make a note sometimes, not make a note some other time, because there's just so much information to input that it's extremely difficult. We try. But on repeat customers, we'll say, sat at this table, had this server, had this wine. Those are some of the key things that we do. So when they come back, hello, Mrs. Jones, how are you? Nice to see you again. Last time you were here was your birthday. Hopefully you had a great time, and thank you for coming in again. And that goes, miles, because they say, I'm being recognized and all this. But again, you have to physically put that information in for every customer to get it back. And it's not always the easiest thing, because you just don't have the people to do it. But we try to, our comment cards, we religiously put them in.
I think sometimes when it's a smaller place, like my father or my sister, you have a lot of the same people that come in, and everybody likes to be recognized and feel special. And that was one of the things that I really learned most from my father was he always knew who they were or what they drank, and it was like, oh, nice to see you. People like the owner to come around to the tables or the managers. It makes them feel important. So I always made a mental note of trying to remember what people drank. If they ate something special, that will stick out in my mind more than the other people who had their dinner as it normally comes.
Yes,
How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Phyllis.
We were 6 people that ate at a restaurant, and there was an 18%
Service charge.
service charge, correct. Not noticed by the men that were paying the bill,
Okay.
my husband and the 2 other men, and another 20% was put on top.
Oh, I love that.
Was it the server's place to say something, or not really?
I think so.
We ask, because we do put a table of 6 or more, we actually put a 20% service charge.
Okay.
And we tell the servers to make sure that if they present a bill and the service charge is on there, and they don't do anything about it, then they know that's
Right.
the service charge. If they take cash and they say, that's when they're told, by the way, there is a service charge. And it is, how much? Well, I'm gonna leave you more than that. He takes the bill back, we void it, and they leave the cash. There've been occasions where they said, well, I'm gonna leave you more money. Not to say that occasionally somebody will neglect to say it, and I get phone calls. How come? We charged me 20%, I left another 20%.
Yeah.
And that's when the apologies go in, and we talk to the servers, and they say, you have to let people know
Yeah.
that we're charging them. That's that, because whether they're happy or not with it, doesn't matter. We can fix it right at the restaurant level at that point.
Well,
But
that's
to have 'em walk-
obviously, that was a very nice tip.
Yeah.
18% and then another 20%, but I think the men they had contacted each other afterwards, but they were upset.
Well, this is what I did. When I worked at my first restaurant, we ran that scam all the time.
Oh,
Oh, we totally did. And I learned if I really didn't like you, if you were rude, it was like, I don't really care what happens to you. And so the scam was this. We would write, the tip would be on, and we would flip over the check, and we'd write the total on the back, right, in a big circle with a big smiley face, and we'd give it to you, and then the customer, who's usually 3 sheets out of his mind, would go, okay, here's some extra money, right? And we would walk away, and we'd be very happy. Then I became the manager of a restaurant, and all that ceased. Because I said, I know how to do that trick, and I'm not doing it anymore, because it's wrong, But I was a converted sinner.
I've
took me
seen
a
it.
while.
I think it's wrong. In fact, I worked with somebody at one time that actually used to cheat people on a 5-top. And I thought that was horrible. It says right on the menu, on 6 people or more, what they would do is they would wait until the person left so they could say, oh, we didn't know they left us extra money, yay. But I think it's immoral to do that. And but
Well,
you should always
yeah,
check
you're
at the
right.
bottom of your check, and that's
You're
why.
right. But you have to understand something. When you're a waiter and you're watching these customers and how they're treating their members of their family, or how they're treating the wait staff, or how they're treating the busboys, okay, or how they berated the hostess on the way in, all right? Sometimes you want to get a little payback. And that's what would happen with waiters. So I always tell people, and here's the thing, a lot of waiters are always going to be, we want you to have a nice time, it's true. We want you to have a good experience, that's true. Don't mess with the waiter. Don't ever mess with the waiter, okay? They can make your lives miserable, okay?
Yeah, you can wait longer for
You
your
can
food.
wait longer, you can end up with a seat by the bathroom. My favorite was, I would say, your credit card had been declined. And it hadn't been declined. Let me tell you, nothing drives rich people crazier than that. When you say, oh, your American Express Black is dead, you know, and you do. And then, of course, at the last minute, you would go, oh, it worked, you're fine. So there are ways, but I wouldn't do this to people just because I was psychotic and I wanted to mess with people. I would see people treat other people, or me, very badly. So I always had a saying, if none of the waiters are friendly to you in a restaurant you normally go to, something's wrong with you, not the waiters. Remember that.
We also, because a lot of people pay with points in our restaurant, they cannot put tip on points or comps. So they're aware of that. And usually they'll give a credit card and say put a penny on, and then they'll put the 20% or whatever they wish to put on. But to be punitive to a customer because they've been mistreated, we don't tolerate it from a management standpoint, absolutely not. And if we're aware of it, we'll make sure that they're told about it. We don't want to see it. You suffer. You just have to suffer the one customer and get by and be cheerful because you have another 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 that are coming in. And if you maintain that, you're going to lose the tips for the rest of the night because you're just going to be thinking about how this person really pissed you off and you're going to get revenge on something, which really doesn't work. But again, that's from the managerial staff.
You snap, folks. But no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But there are just days you just can't take it.
And because I do know some owners of restaurants, and there's one in particular where I know for a fact if I were there with my husband and me, not I'm with 6 people, I pay 50%. But I always know that I'm getting 50% off, and I do the tip on 100%. Because that wait staff, needs that 20%.
Absolutely, yes, sure they do.
Not the 20% of the 50%. So, it doesn't happen to a lot of people. But if you're in our business, it does happen once in a while, and you have to think about the wait person, the server, and put the 20% in there for them, yeah.
I'll go to a restaurant, in a casino, and we reciprocate. And I was there with another restaurant with my executive chef, and we ask for the bill at the end of the day, even though say you're all set, because we want to see what to leave for gratuity. And that's absolutely important. Because sometimes people will get comped after their dinner. If it's $500 and they got comped $250, they want to leave a tip on $250. That's really not right. Not much you can do about it, but that's really not right.
Yeah.
Or those coupons or Groupons.
Oh.
All right? Yeah, that's another thing.
That's
so he's
another
right.
thing.
Try and remember what it would be full price.
Yes.
And even if somebody buys you a dessert or a drink and it's not on there,
Add
I
it in
still
there.
figure that on my head to
Yes.
add that on there.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for coming.